anything else you want to say? Okay, we're now back in, open session. So we'll need, to make a motion to basically approve what we just discussed in closed session. So we need a motion regarding the approval of Steve Ritchie for a full-time position. So, you want to make that motion?
I will. I move that the town restored board, give permission to Police Chief Jensen to move forward in the hiring of Stephen N. Birchie for a full-time police position.
I'll second that.
Okay, Chad, a second. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 0, 5-0. Good to go.
Congratulations.
Okay,
Thanks again, Mr. Chairman.
we only have one other item for the agenda yet. One of them discussion of flex time for Chief Jensen. Jim, where are we at with this, action?
Well, I did, speak with council, he thinks perhaps we can start in open session, he still views it as a compensation type issue. He was going to talk to the chief about, a 40-hour work restriction, so we don't have to even deal with the flex time.
Okay.
But that's not going to work in terms of local emergency or what have you. So because he believes this memo somehow modifies the contract, and we're talking about compensation, if we need to change this with the new board, then I think we need to proceed in closed session.
Okay,
And it would have to be on a different date,
This
because it was
memo
noticed.
was never part of a town board meeting, never discussed, never approved.
everything that's in there was done at either the regular, town board meetings or during the negotiations of the contracts, either the original one at year 0 or at the beginning of year 4.
We have, is there the minutes? I mean,
I-
is there minutes for those meetings, what is there, and I'm only
If it were in
asking.
closed session, there wouldn't be minutes for it, so if it was during the contract negotiation stage of it, there wouldn't be minutes for
Just that
that.
it was then board meeting.
He said or
Okay,
at a board meeting.
Well,
Barbara doesn't recall
there was discussion of both.
No, I recall there was
discussion.
at one point where we told the chief that, so social events did not count towards, flex time. And that was something that flex time wasn't, we weren't compensating him for social events. If that's what he was doing.
That was one of the discussions. And one of the other discussions, Kim brought up the issue, because you gotta remember, the rest of the town employees, I believe all of them, have true comp time. If you read the contract, you see how that works.
They're under different
Yeah.
contracts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
different contract, and it includes this deal with, time and a half, and carrying over, and getting paid out. We're not doing none of that.
That's all with the state, correct? That they
Well-
mandate, they pretty much mandate that, their contracts, the rest,
This-
most of the other
okay.
employees.
I knew we were gonna be talking about this, and what I just handed out to you was kind of how I think this discussion's gonna go. I'll just read it. I said, this is for the discussion of flex time for Chief Jensen.
What is,
This is what I wrote up to kind of lead us into how we're gonna discuss this. Cause I know there's gonna be questions, for the chief, whether or not we're gonna get that far. But I says, this whole deal about this flex time is nothing more, and I'll read it. It says, this appears to be a continuation of Facebook's misinformation against Chief Jensen. The basis was the board requested calendar of the chief's time recording. This internal document, like these calendars, were removed from my town mailbox and distributed in some form to the public. That's how this started. The perpetrators are no longer town employees. The support of the chief and the police department by the board is critical at this time. The insinuation of wrongdoing by the chief or the past 3-man board is without merit. The chief's implementation of flex time is by verbal agreement with the board as detailed in my July 7, 2021 memorandum to the board. The direction has been followed consistently for nearly 5 years. If the new board wishes to modify and document this agreement, town legal council recommends an amendment to the chief's employment contract be executed. I am in favor of executing an amendment to the contract with no changes. If the board wishes to state their concerns on this issue, please do so at this time. These concerns will be incorporated into a contract amendment if appropriate. The town should not be labeled as unworthy of fulfilling agreements, written or verbal. That's the summary in my view of where we're at, why this is on the agenda.
Can I give a copy of this to council there?
Sure.
Now I think this completely falls under a compensation issue that has to be rescheduled for closed session.
Okay.
Do you have an extra copy of that?
I do.
have?
Nice to
This
get-
is not my understanding of the chain of events at all either.
It'd been nice to get this at the beginning of the meeting also, would have maybe,
Which-
it would have
This
helped,
piece?
it might have helped Attorney Mills help us as a, you know.
Well, that's where we're at now. I mean,
discussion.
I thought us, Jeff.
When I spoke with council this afternoon, I had,
None of us
None of
had.
it.
I
We just-
didn't have
We
this,
just got this 2 minutes ago.
which would have supplemented
You
the
got it.
memo you did to the board members on,
Correct.
right. I do think that changes the composition of what we have to discuss.
Well, I think that's where we were going, that's why I.
Compensation
Okay.
issues are closed session issues.
Any comments?
Sure.
There's no public comments on this meeting
Well, we're
agenda.
We're just.
Well, we're not under public comment, we're under,
Discussion. with
Discussion
Chief
part.
Benson. We're under the agenda item posted. And
my
We can
opinion,
take-
my opinion is the board should not comment.
Stop right now.
Right, that doesn't
Yeah.
prohibit, I mean, if he wants to
Any
waive a closed session hearing and move forward, I suppose that's his right, but
But any other
Until
item
he
on the
does that.
agenda, the board is not allowed to participate.
Correct. Well,
but right,
this is the issue though we're talking about.
right now it's not noticed for closed session.
Right. And the question is whether or not we're gonna do, we need to do a closed session. I'd like to hear, you just shared this.
My point is, right now it's on for open discussion of this.
Okay.
If the chief's attorney is here and is willing to waive a closed session meeting to discuss it, because he wants to move forward tonight, we have to hear his opinion on that.
Okay.
Because if he chooses to waive it, I still might have the same opinion that we should be doing this in closed session, but, I need to hear how he wants to move forward.
Okay.
So, you heard my, discussion, am I correct in that you view this as a compensation issue?
Yes.
Okay, well, there we go.
Okay, so we'll have to schedule a closed session for this.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only new information, it's not even new information, my summary of what I thought we would discuss today, everything that's in there is still really where I think we're going. What I heard from the recommendation from our attorney, as well as the question that came from everybody here, is they don't like the idea of, a verbal agreement, even though it's an agreement, okay, number one. And number two,
So we can.
No,
make
then
but
there should
we
be
can't-
meeting minutes
And
of
I'm not
that
talking
verbal
about
agreement.
just this particular item, so you're telling me we can just make
Right.
verbal agreements with whoever we want?
No, you cannot.
But so, verbal agreement isn't, and I'm not talking, like I say, I'm not
Right,
talking
it's
about this
nothing
situation, it's a big deal when you say it's a gentleman's agreement,
Mm.
and I've made those, and I feel, I try to act and propose, or present myself that way, but I do that with my own money, with my own terms, or bartering back and forth, I don't do it with other people's stuff, so it's,
Government.
I don't feel as though that's the right comment, I'm not saying that it wasn't in good faith of what you were doing, but that doesn't necessarily, I mean, we just went through a contract thing with,
Well,
to get our bathrooms done, and it took us 2
months.
months.
Well,
You know,
and-
it's, we're really sticklers about that, so that's where I'm not against anything, I'm not saying either way, but at the same time, it's not okay to just do a verbal agreement in government.
And I don't necessarily agree per se, and, council and I had this discussion on the phone, that memorializing your gentleman's agreement makes it a contract amendment, but
But like
I
I
can
said,
see how
this,
that argument could be made.
but this memo was never discussed in an open meeting or documented.
It was just, that's,
Not that I recall.
that's the only way it gets
It was
created.
mandated to the town by Chairman Clark Hotchkiss.
Mandated
This is what you presented to us as your facts.
as what was agreed upon. Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Right? Mhm.
But we never
have
took
these
action
obviously
or
saying this was the
discussion on
board, you know, the.
No, but I think he's saying this happened back at
Right.
original contract negotiation.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
it happened 5 years ago, and.
If that's true, the contract should have been amended at that point and just had that language in it from the start.
Yeah,
Which is what we put
I
sticklers on every
think
single
that is-
contract,
right,
we've been
and then-
making sure that.
and I'm proposing that now, I think we should, because now we've been advised that it should. Then it should, and what the past board thought, you know, I mean, to me, it's almost like getting, basically chastised for being too generous is what I'm seeing. You know, it's like, no, you know, this is what, you know, was negotiated, and this is what the agreement was.
Okay,
But it had to be.
we're not talking about negotiation stuff.
Okay.
That's closed session.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's where we're at then. So, the recommendation, from you, and we didn't get to the point yet, I guess you did ask the question. You did
I asked
say
if he
that-
viewed this as a compensation issue, and he said yes.
Okay,
So that, confirms my legal opinion. Compensation matters are closed session agenda items, and there's a specific exception to open meetings when you're talking about a contract and compensation of public employees.
So we need a motion then, for a closed meeting.
No, there'll be no action on this tonight. Well, there'll be no discussion of it, we could try to schedule a closed session meeting, but Michelle doesn't have her calendar right now.
Well, no, we just struggled to get a date for the budget workshop, so it will be in December.
it'll be in December.
Do we just put it on the agenda for December to schedule a closed session meeting?
Yes.
If we can have it before the,
Right.
you're saying for that
Yeah.
regular
Well,
town board.
he's saying put on the agenda.
That's what I was suggesting, when is it?
But it's
December?
13th, so we could have it before then.
Before that,
Well, that's fine, but I won't be at the budget workshop meeting,
No, no,
so
I'm-
I
If we
I thought
schedule
it
it
for the town.
In
What about the
December, but
hearing?
not waiting till, to schedule it till the 8th, is what you were saying, right, or the 13th?
That's fine, I just don't know if the date you guys all pick is a date that I'm available, that I
But
need to
what
be
about
here for.
If Jim could do after the hearing, after the budget hearing.
Yeah,
On
but
the
see, the
29th.
budget hearing, you don't know when the end of it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that
You know,
could be.
Oh,
It could be an hour, it could be three.
And then posting it.
Yeah, I would think.
I can make almost any night work as long as it's not a first and third Thursday.
What's wrong with before the town board meeting?
We don't know
Well,
how long
that's-
it's gonna last.
yeah. And that's not till the 13th.
But why wouldn't it just be part of that town board meeting on the agenda?
Yeah.
Not like a special time or anything.
You mean to set a date,
Move
you
to
mean?
closed session.
We have
Those,
to,
those board meetings are pretty long.
right,
Yes, they are.
we're running 3 hours,
Yeah, we're running
So,
2.5 at least.
I still have to get up and go to work like most people.
Right?
Well, it's gonna be December. We
The
know
week
that.
before, on the 6th?
Sixth is available for me. I know what you're thinking, the timing,
Well, we
Sooner
could just
better.
put the 29th or the 30th for the public hearing, or the 30th for the closed session.
well,
Not that,
Two
I
nights
know,
in a
I don't
row.
know, I'm just throwing some.
No, I totally said, I didn't mean that, I was just looking at the rest of whatever's on there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
well,
you guys
public-
have other meetings beyond,
the public hearing is normally what, 15 to 30 minutes.
well, that's what I was thinking.
So you could do, schedule for 6:30, and if it starts at 6:40, big deal. But we could do 6:30 and the 29th, right after the public hearing of the budget.
Do we typically have to, make sure it's starting at the time we have it posted on,
Well, you can't start before that. You
it
can't start-
doesn't matter, you can
Yeah,
start
if we
after
say
that,
6:30,
if it goes
and
longer.
it starts at 6:35.
It's gonna be a closed session, so the public will be here to hear us start the meeting. and
Sure,
then
sure, I
close
just
the
didn't know when you have
meeting.
it posted
So-
like that, does it have to start at a
It'll be
certain
okay.
time, you know, we're
Say
always right
6:30.
on time, boom,
Yeah.
boom, boom, is that okay, if it is,
Yeah.
fine?
So can a meeting start late, is what he's asking.
You know, if it goes, if our,
It could,
Okay, so like if we said
It's
today,
okay
start
if
at
it does.
5:30, Joe hits a deer and gets here late,
right,
we could start at 5:45.
you cannot start before
Can't
that.
start before
Okay,
that.
so we could start at 6:45, for instance.
Correct.
I would give yourself more than 15 minutes for the.
Yeah,
public
and-
hearing.
Right.
Maybe the budget
Well, we're at
hearing can
6.
start at 5:30.
We're at 6 for the public
We'll
hearing.
find out in the morning.
Okay, and what time are you?
6:30, and then say 6:30 for the meeting to go into closed session, the special meeting, which would be closed session at 6:30, which could potentially start at 6:45. So that gives, you know, a half hour.
Or you can just
For the
put.
budget.
I'd rather just post 6:45.
Okay.
Okay.
But what if I email you in the morning and say I can do the budget hearing at 5:30, did everyone else? They can do it at
Well, if
5:30.
we leave 45 minutes between the two.
Okay, so would everybody be okay if Michelle lets me know that she could do the budget hearing on the 29th at 5:30, bumping it up to earlier?
that's fine.
Okay,
Then-
so because that wasn't like a motion item or anything like that, Michelle, you let me know
Does that
about
date work for
the
you?
workshop.
What date?
You let me know about the
29th.
workshop on the 16th, and let me know about the public hearing. I'll adjust the dates and, or the
Just
times,
time.
the times, not the dates. I'll adjust the times accordingly, leaving 45 minutes from the start of the public hearing to the start of the special meeting. Fair?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
I'll let you know, it'll either be 6:15 or 6:45 on the 29th.
Monday the 29th.
Correct.
Okay, well, that's my name.
We would check the payment and adjourn.
Oh, okay, we just, so we're gonna, just review some checks here, and we're gonna adjourn, so you wanna stick around, watch us sign the checks, you can do that, otherwise we're adjourned, so I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Barb second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. All right, thank you.
You first, Barb.
What's the deal with Kim? When can she work full time again?
Well, she's
Nice to
already
meet you. Yeah,
back
take care.
at a
Right.
higher
Have a good
level
night.
than when she was out for the 5 days. Because remember when she came back after 5 days, she could only work 3 hours a day.
I didn't realize she
Oh.
had to even out for that first.
Oh, yeah, she was out for 5 days, in the hospital for 5 days, and when she came back, she was only at 3 hours a day. And she's already been coming back for between 4 and 5 hours. Today, she was actually in from 9 until 3, and she was wiped at the end. So when can she be back full-time? Don't know, she does have a doctor's statement, that I don't know if she put it in your mailbox.
Yeah, I got one in mind.
Stating that she can come back to work what she chooses to, but with lots of breaks, so like limited time and lots of breaks.
So she's like at 4 hours right now this week?
Well, she was in for, I don't know her exact hours, but today she put in a long day. But she's been sleeping a little bit better at night, so I think that she's feeling better. But she was in today from 9 until 3, which was too long. She was tired when she left, that was 6 hours, she was beat.
Any gauge on how far behind we were versus how far behind we are now?
Oh, we're looking, I
I think
mean,
if these done,
Just pay
if all the accounts payable is up to date, right?
no, she has a small stack left for tomorrow, she'll call you tomorrow.
Okay.
That they could, so we just about are all caught up with that, payroll's been up to date,
Okay.
and all the backlog paperwork that goes with payroll, like the stuff that she does inside, that's caught up.
Believe me, I
And now we're on track for budget, we'll have
Yeah.
that all done on time.
Do I just have to initial this?
I think so. say that again.
But,
Well, budget is an issue, that's what she's gonna focus on, as soon as she gets the last of the payables done tomorrow, then she's gonna start focusing on budget. But we still have the issue with the courts, because she's out. She's out. So I talked to Kim before the meeting to
would it
say,
be
should
possible
I?
for Joanne to come in?
Didn't you get my,
I did, yeah, not
She, she offered to, but
the second one?
Here's what I'm thinking,
Yeah, that was.
here's what Kim and I are thinking, just because of now this
Yeah,
situation
I've seen
with us,
that.
Right.
is that we're gonna have to take the spreadsheet, the workbook,
bonus
I'll
checks.
rename it as, you know,
Christmas
whatever,
gifts.
and take people that are on there twice
And,
For automatic
compensation to the
payments?
board.
and remove one line, because they are literally.
But are you sure they're
That was
automatic
part of
payment
the
and she
21
didn't
budget?
list, because it's more than one citation?
No,
Each
because I
line
cross-reference
items.
every
department
automatic
costs
deposit.
Compensation.
Okay.
And
that
it's
we
the
got
same
from
for everyone,
audit.
it's
Yeah.
not-
Yeah, there's no.
with the workbook,
Yeah.
and there's people that are listed on there
It
twice
was a
with
hundred when I
only one
started, and
deposit.
now it's a hundred.
There's people that are listed on this page and this page with only one
You
deposit.
heard that.
There are
Judge
people on the
and
deposit
both
that are
have
not
both.
even on any of the
And
tabs.
of course
Okay.
That's the
Leslie
problem.
and the judge both.
If the cash and
And the
checks
judge
are messed up,
Yeah.
that's gonna be an issue, because we don't
Well,
have that stuff.
Right.
So
But
fingers
yeah.
crossed, that if I go through and I delete those doubles, cause I took
Oh.
each
Where are
ACH
File.
and I did this one in green
Hmm?
and checked people off.
Yeah.
I did this one in red and checked people off. I did this one in pink and checked people off. And I wrote on here twice with only one thing,
Right.
on this tab, on this tab. So once I go through and I clean that up, if the cash and the checks are good,
Is that
just all of them?
then we should be,
So you're just cleaning up payments that have come in,
mhm.
not that a conviction happened
Right,
on November
You know what I
sixth
was
and
told,
their
like, in
pay by
this
date
time,
is
and I asked her-
January
No.
sixth.
Yeah,
it's
do you have
nothing
to
like
get
that.
negative test?
It's simply, when she gets a payment,
Before
you
you
come
can
in
go
and you
back
pay
to
cash
work,
at the
and
window.
she's like,
She
no, they
puts
told
that
me
on the
I'll
cash
test
sheet.
positive for
That's the
months
spreadsheet, that's called the
after.
cash sheet.
I've heard that.
So it's just like your
Looking for
quarantine
something saying,
time.
With
I
everybody.
paid
I know,
mine
that
online.
makes no sense.
She puts that on the
Except you're
cash
saying
sheet.
10 days after.
Okay.
So what happened, and then
Will
goes,
she get
Because you're
confirmation
quarantined.
that
Never
there's
had
something on
Comes
it?
on a fax, and it goes into her
But there's some
mailbox.
places.
Plus she
that
gets an
have
email.
having
A negative
I
test,
believe
like
she
to
gets
get
an
back in
email,
the
I can't say that
country.
100%,
Still
but I
have
believe
that
she gets an
negative.
email.
You still have a positive.
So then
test,
we,
but not-
so then she gets those,
You're not
then
shipping, but
she has to
Right,
approve
you're
what I
them in
told
the
you to
computer,
do is get a hold of the
Then all
public
pay
up front in
processes
Waller
it
County
and
the
does the
sheriff's
deposit
department.
into our account.
Cause he was asking me about.
Then
what
we get
to do.
the ACH
You know, and
transfer
I said,
fax
the guidance is
and the
everywhere.
email
He checked,
that
like,
says
police
these
department, all
people,
three
so
of
they're
them,
on this thing that's on the
So I
ACH,
said,
but
get
they're
with
also
the-
on all these little
That's
individual
companies and
faxes that
this,
she
you know,
gets.
Right.
That's all they.
And
yeah.
everybody on here should be on the cash sheet.
But you think
Changes.
this stuff's
They all
going away,
pay.
it ain't.
It's never going away.
Oh, and she might
It's
be
the
treating
next
the
thing.
cash sheet as strictly those people that pay in cash.
No, it's
I think
just
most
that,
were-
it was
they're gonna
new to
have,
Right.
you know, she didn't know what was going on and stuff like that, so,
And Chris never did it, so no
No.
one trained her.
you know,
I'm gonna ask you, Joe,
And-
about the bathroom, are those entry doors?
it's
in the
her
bathroom, are those
responsibility
approved?
to not have
To
duplicate
me,
entries.
that's
To
the
not
old
have
bar.
on this page and this,
I gotta
Seems
look
like they
at
got-
you know.
I gotta look at the contract.
Let's talk to the channel.
It's possible we didn't see it before because the floor width wasn't easy.
That's not from the job.
What?
With the swing, the swing, I guess it doesn't matter, you're either pulling on it or pushing.
Well, maybe move that wall coming in, because that was the problem.
Make sure it balances
The
to
wheelchair could not negotiate that properly,
the statement.
you know.
So I think
So I'm gonna
if
check
she
the
just put in
door
all like
schedule and see.
cash and
I was
checks,
thinking the swing, but that wouldn't make any difference
I
anyway,
know,
because
but
you
the-
gotta push it
all
one way or another,
ones
whether
that,
it's from the
you know,
outside in or
online
inside out.
payments.
Yeah.
And I can go in there and I can
No,
either
okay.
plus,
No, that's not required.
Those aren't cheap either.
Well, I don't know if we can even do it in there, you think?
a
Yeah,
accurate cash sheet
Yeah.
or something to that.
that's.
Yeah.